Welcome back. Okay, we've talked about variables. Now, that's fine if you have one variable, a string equals but what if you have 10 or 100 or 1,000 and you have a kind of relationship? They're related to each other. No, I mean, it's fine when you now say something like those two have nothing to do with each other, but sometimes they do. They're a set. They do something together. Then what you can do, I suppose, is something like this. And A2 string equals B. And you go all the way to A26, which will be a letter Z. There is, however, a more coherent way to do this. That is dim for dimension, A, and we'll make this a string setup, and so this sets aside a bit of memory, and it says in here I want you to store 26 strings. And now we can start filling them up. A, all right, and okay, it looks like you haven't saved much space. Right? The way we did it before without these brackets, you're still going to have 26 statements. A string 3 equals C, A string 4 equals... But you're now able to, for instance, read it in from a file. Or you can set up data statements and read those in. Now, what do you think would happen if I now said sorry, 27? Well, then you enlarge the array by one member. So you can always enlarge an array. You can expand them. What you cannot do in YAB is shrink them. And that is a bit of a sore point sometimes, because other basic dialects have this command, which you can use to shrink it all the way back to 1 or even 0. Also, in YAB we always start counting these things at 1. In something like free basic, you can start counting at 1, like a normal person, or you can start counting at 0, like a programmer. And there's a little setting that you can set for that, which can lead to confusion if you're pulling in an external library. But don't worry about that now. Right, so this goes all the way to... So we do have this redim command for compatibility, but it's just a synonym for dim. So if we have a quick look at the documentation, right, that'll be in here. Right, so now sometimes what you're going to say is Q equals 25, right? And now you can say, but then something happens to this variable Q and you no longer know what the size is. And so then you have this command, arraydim, right? Right. And array size. Right, that is more for numeric arrays, because I've been using string arrays here. But you can, of course, also have numerical arrays, right? And so you have to dimension it. Let's call this B, just to be on the safe side. Right, so I now have an array with 4 numbers, and it can take 123 numbers. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Arrays can have more than one dimension. For example, so think of that as a spreadsheet, right? So you can now have 10 values across and 10 values down. Could have been more, could have been 10 across and 10,000 down. You can have 3 dimensions. Now, like these modern 3D spreadsheets that have tabs one behind the other. So now you've got more like of a cube kind of affair. Believe it or not, you can merrily keep on adding dimensions. And that's now a 5-dimensional array. Yab will not crash. But don't do it. For the simple reason that if you can no longer visualize it, you can't program it. And the human brain was not made to visualize in more than 3 dimensions. In fact, 3 dimensions is hard enough to keep straight. So, if you really need one, then rather say, make a second dimension, a second array rather, and keep your stuff in there. So, what is going to happen? Because all of these things that we have been using have used a single letter. So does it now mean that you only have 26 string arrays and 26 numerical arrays to play with? Not at all. Because if you look here in the example, in the documentation rather, you can see they actually use array as the name. You know, long ago it used to be the case that an array was always a single letter, and that's the way a lot of people still use it. But in fact, the same rules apply as to variables, and you can just give it a more descriptive name. Let's just try that. Let's get up a terminal. Right. I'm making an array with 23 members. I'm not going to use them all, obviously. Yeah, that looks all right. See? So you can have many arrays as you like with nice descriptive names. Same rules apply, no spaces, no hyphens, no pluses, letters and underscores, numbers too if you really must. And they come in two kinds, which is string and numbers. And there are alternative ways of doing things, and I still like arrays. But the more contemporary way of doing things is to just stick everything into files and read the files as and when necessary. But I like arrays, and so you're going to get more lessons from arrays. At some stage we'll show you how to read an array in from a file, and then how to read it from data statements, because they really are such useful little things. Thanks for watching.